Welcome to APCUG's Wednesday workshop, where we get together in the middle of the week to learn more about technology. World Elder Abuse Awareness Day is observed globally on June 15th, and the entire month is recognized as Elder Abuse Awareness Month. In recognition of this, agencies such as the Federal Trade Commission, the Department of Justice, host websites and campaigns to combat financial exploitation of older adults. APCUG has been asked to participate, and Mona Terry, the Chief Operating and Program Officers at the Identity Theft Resource Center, is giving a presentation today on identity theft prevention and recovery for older adults. Mona oversees recovery frameworks and services for victims of identity crimes. With more than 2 decades of experience in consumer protection, Mona combines operational management with direct service delivery. As part of the ITRC senior management team, she manages the research and publications of the annual Trends in Identity report. Mona regularly advises internal and external stakeholders on emerging trends in identity crime and participates in industry presentations and conferences. We are so pleased to invite her to join our presenter group as we do all throughout the year, trying to bring information to our members about safety online, everywhere. And so Mona, being a new person, we're excited. I'm going to turn things over to you and let you unmute and share with us.
Thank you so much, John. Let me get my presentation up. Can everyone see that okay?
I can see it. And if I can, everybody can.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for that introduction. So my hope is that in the next 35 minutes or so, we'll cover how identity crime is evolving, why older adults are targeted, what you can do to protect yourself, and then what to do if it actually happens. My hope is that you not only look at the trends, so we really know kind of what to expect, hopefully this year, and kind of continuing trends that we see every year, and you also know where to turn. So John did a wonderful introduction. Thank you so much. So just quickly, I started in consumer protection in 2002 with the Better Business Bureau. I've been with the Identity Theft Resource Center for 10 years now. John read my bio, and I just wanted to share that my blood type is coffee. So if you see me drinking coffee, it's definitely a necessity for me, especially first thing in the morning. So if you're not familiar with the Identity Theft Resource Center, we are a nonprofit organization founded in 1999, and we were founded to provide free identity protection and recovery assistance for individuals. So as the field has changed, as kind of identity theft and identity crimes have changed, we've kept along with that. We help everyone in the US. So anyone with a US-based identity credential, we can help with how to protect yourself, how to prevent that from happening. We know scams are international, so a lot of the advice that we give, because we do have people reach in internationally, a lot of the advice that we give is the same, but some of the resources that we give may be a little bit different. We have a data breach checking database, so any publicly available data around data breaches and what information's been compromised in those breaches. We track all of that, so we know, how information is being exposed due to no one themselves, but through the companies. And then we do ongoing research and analysis about identity crimes and the impact and the trends, just so everyone is aware of what's happening and we know how we can protect ourselves. So we'll start with why older adults are targeted. We know that criminals are strategic, they go where value is, and the data that we see at ITRC also backs that up. So when we look at older adults and why they're targeted, we know that older adults have established financial accounts, longer credit histories, consistent income. Some cases, there's a level of trust there that scammers are really engineering to exploit. Specifically, so we took the data from April 2025 to March 2026. And so when we looked at that data for adults 65 and older, 70% of misuse cases where someone's identity was actually misused involved account takeover. And that's dramatically higher than younger age groups, which makes sense because we know criminals are going after established accounts that have money in it. Scams accounted for 56% of compromises in this age group. And we know that scams that disproportionately target older adults are usually the types of scams that are harder to recognize. And then tech support scams we have found has a 91% success rate, and investment scams have a 94% success rate with older adults. 32% of adults 65 and older who contacted the ITRC during that reporting period were dealing with more than one identity incident at the same time. And that is true nationally as well. We're seeing more individuals of every age range just starting to report multiple incidents of identity theft and identity misuse at the same time. And we know just one compromise will set off a chain reaction. So when we talk about compromise, what we're looking at is how information is being exposed, and it does differ by age group. So this data specifically, so when we ask for age demographics, it's voluntary. So we don't ask anyone, no, we ask demographic information, but if someone refuses to give that to us, that's okay. So these are from adults that we know are 65 and older. We had 484 compromise cases, and personal information shared because of a scam was reported at 56% versus 36% nationally. And so we know that 20-point gap reflects deliberate targeting. We know that scam types are specifically targeted for this age group. Device access was at 20% and the second highest reported form of compromise for adults 65 and older. And device access is typically when individuals come to the ITRC, they're talking about a hacked device, and they can't necessarily tell us how someone was able to access their device, or they don't feel comfortable, or they may feel ashamed about how someone got access to their device. For us, we just want to help them get someone out of their device and understand what was accessed. For ages 35 to 49, device access was 34% of reports, and adults ages 50 to 64, it was 38%. So for the first time, we've seen device access as a form of compromise surpass scams for working age adults, which is crazy. I've been at the ITRC for 10 years. Scams has been the number one form of compromise since I've been here. And for the first time, we've seen device access kind of be neck and neck with scams, which is frightening. Breaches have been reported at 9%. It's the number three type of compromise for this age group, edging out physical identity theft by 1%. And nationally, the order is reversed. More people report physical theft than data breaches. When we do see physical theft happen with older adults, medical insurance cards are stolen at 16% of physical theft cases, which is three times the national rate of 5%. So when we look at just overall, it's 5% nationally, 16% for individuals who are 65 and older. And we know that's a direct pathway to medical identity theft. We also know that breaches are targeting hospitals and medical providers, so we know that's a big deal. Driver's licenses are stolen at 50% of cases, which is higher than the national average of 41%. And we know that Social Security cards and credit payment cards came in lower than the national average, but still in the top four items that thieves are looking for when they're actually stealing physical things. When we look at the scam playbook for adults 65 and older, account problem scams is 40%. So that's where someone says, hey, there's something suspicious going on with your bank account. There's some suspicious transaction with Apple on your Medicare account. So something weird is happening with an account you may or may not actually own. And then the scammer is asking for your personal information to verify who you are, right? So they want your Social Security number, they want your account number, they want payment card details. emails. That's the number one type of a scam that's been impacting older adults. Tech support scams are also elevated, so 11% for this age group versus 5% nationally. We know that, this is your computer, especially for people on computers, but it's happening on phones as well, especially for people who are on a browser on their phone, right? Your device has been compromised. Please contact us immediately. So whether it's a browser pop-up, whether it's an email, whether it's a phone call, it's almost always a tech support scam. We know that those agencies do not contact you. We know Apple doesn't contact you directly. Microsoft does not contact you directly. But the scammers are successful, so they continue to use that tactic. Sale of goods and services, lottery and prize scams and romance scams are kind of right in that top six list, but at a much lower rate, especially compared to the national average. When we look at recognition rate, so percent of victims who reported that they received a call, usually it's a call or a text message or email about a scam, but didn't actually give them anything. We saw that invoices or unexpected bills had a high recognition rate at 64%. Account problems and tech support, as we saw from the last slide, the recognition rate for those are 15% and 9% respectively. So we know that the account problems, tech support, and romance and investment scams, which sometimes are tied together, are successful. And it's not necessarily, a failure of awareness on anyone's part. We just know that these scams, and especially with AI involvement with scams, it's just being built so that it's really hard to tell what's legitimate and what's not legitimate. So we said AI has fundamentally changed what scams do. So we now not only is AI allowing scammers to execute these scams at scale, they're using very specific types of um, technology to then use those scams, right? So voice cloning technology, we know can replicate someone's voice from just a few seconds of audio, where there is documented cases of people receiving calls that they thought was from a grandchild in their grandchild's voice, claiming to be in an emergency. I will tell you at the ITRC, we really don't get any, if many or any really voice cloning scams. While it is out there, I don't think it's as prevalent as maybe we might see in the media, but it absolutely is still a thing. Hyper-personalized phishing is definitely where I feel like these scams have evolved and AI is helping the scammers. So AI tools are scraping social media, public comments, photos, and then they're crafting a message that looks really real, right? Hi, I saw your recent photos from Palm Springs. Or hey, Mona, I know that your phone number is, right, from all those databases that we know have personal contact information. We know that personalized phishing, psychologically, it just allows the scammer to seem like someone who does know you or does have some reason to be contacting you, which puts people's guard down. And we know that they're using psychological tactics all the time. And then the three defenses at the bottom, the establish a safe word with a family or friends, right? So a code word that kind of only your family knows. So if there's an emergency, if you are worried about voice cloning, that's one way to kind of get around that. Hang up and call the real number. So, kind of our advice always when someone is contacting you with a high sense of urgency and it's not a call you were expecting, it's okay to pause and to breathe and to say, I'm going to call you back, and then try and find the real number. You can always contact the ITRC as well. But, there's very rarely, unless there's a true medical emergency, right? There's very rarely a reason why anyone would have to take action right away on something, even if you are legitimately in debt, if something's happening. You don't have to do things in the moment. We know this, and so they use that pressure and urgency as that way to get you to comply. Because again, we know that biologically, when you feel like you're in threat, your executive function in your brain shuts down, right? And so you're not thinking; you're really acting with emotion. I can't tell you how many victims we've worked with who have said, I knew better. I know better. I'm super smart. I see these things all the time, but in that moment, I just wasn't thinking straight. The scammers know that as well, and so they really use those high pressure tactics to try and override your rational thinking brain and get you just to act from a place of emotion. And we talked about kind of hacked devices being the new attack surface. So unauthorized device access surged 78% overall for all age groups. And I mentioned earlier, for the first time, it surpassed scams as the leading compromise method for working age adults. So we know that kind of phones nowadays, compared to how they used to be, and I feel like I can say that with some authority, um, is that they are mini computers, right, in people's pockets, and a lot of people rely on their phone for everything, right? So they keep their passwords on it, right? All their pictures are there, access to all their software, everything is done from a device, typically a phone, but devices really also include things like tablets and laptops and things like that as well. So when people talk to the ITRC and they say their device is hacked, they don't let us know. Did they click on a link? Did they share information? A lot of people can't tell us what's happening. One of the things we suspect may be happening is account takeover. So it's a Google ID or it's an Apple ID, and it's those accounts that are being taken over. And then when those accounts are synced with their actual device, that's how that person's getting in. We don't know for sure, again, because we're not going to push people to give us that information, especially if they don't feel comfortable. But that's kind of one of the things that we're suspecting, especially because we know account takeover is such a big identity theft issue right now. Among the people whose devices were compromised and then experienced misuse, 87% experienced account takeover. And we know that there are apps that don't log out, right? So if people don't intentionally go in and log out of those, there we know social media accounts, email accounts. We're starting to see a slight increase in the peer-to-peer payments, so like Venmo, Zelle, things like that, right? Those don't log out automatically either. And so if a thief has access to a device, especially a phone that has these accounts that are automatically logged in and stay logged in, they can now access that if they get access to that device. So I'm sure you guys are very familiar with the device security checklist, but we always like to repeat it. Right, enabling Face ID or Touch ID. I've been surprised at the number of people who don't use biometrics or who don't even use a password to lock their devices. I know I have my device auto lock, I think after 30 seconds or a minute, which drives my husband and my son, my teenage son, crazy. But it's there for a reason. Turning on multi-factor authentication, we encourage people to use an authenticator app that generates a code every 20 to 30 seconds versus having it sent to an email or to a text message, because we know that hacked devices is really a big thing right now. We encourage people to use passkeys, enabling Find My so that you can remote control your device and at least lock it down, reviewing app permissions to make sure that what they're requesting to access on your device is something that they need, and then making sure everyone keeps their software updated. So when we look at what criminals are doing once they get the information, we talked about account takeover being the highest. So for adults 65 and older, account takeover was 70% of misuse. The national average is 50%. So we know that criminals are going after those established accounts like we talked about. We know that a 25-year-old, right, might have minimal savings. They may not have a big credit file yet. They just haven't had enough time on the planet. We know that someone who does have time on the planet has had a lot more time to establish an account and then really kind of enrich that account. We know that with new account fraud, it's actually lower for this age group at 25% versus 38% nationally. So still significant, but lower than the national average. And that's one that, if you are being really alert, you can hopefully catch pretty quickly. So it's more challenging, I think, to catch new account fraud than account takeover, because with account takeover, at least if you're monitoring your account, you can catch it right away. With new account fraud, at least with financial accounts, you can do that through checking your credit report. 23% of people catch new account fraud by checking their credit report. But we know that it's just harder to find in general. When you look at new account fraud, usually someone's noticed because they get a collection notice. They receive something in the mail that says an account was established in their name. I know I received this year two different emails saying that an account was established in my name, and it wasn't a scam. It was someone who had actually established an account using my email. In fact, I had one that was for eBay. Someone was conducting fraudulent transactions using my email address and just my email address, not my phone number, not my name, just my email address. And so I had to kind of go through the steps to shut that down. But had I not been aware, if they hadn't used my email and had been using other personal information of mine, that would have been a lot harder to figure out. We talk a lot about the data and kind of what's happening, but we also like to talk about the human side of identity crime and how it makes people feel. So the average person reports 6 emotional responses to their identity crime. So 74% express frustration. We see anxiety, worry, anger. People feel violated. 46% reported depression. 40% said they felt guilt or shame. We know that scam victims report higher feelings of guilt or shame. Fraudulent employment victims, so that's a victim where their social security number is being used by an identity thief for employment. They feel 89% of them are dealing with depression. So we know that these crimes that are really impactful really take a deep toll on the person, and that's one of the things we do at ITRC is just to help support people and realize that if someone was deceived by a scammer, it's not a personal failing. That's what they do. That's their job, and they're really really good at it. These crimes that things like criminal identity theft, where someone commits a crime in someone's name or is working under someone's name, those things are harder to find. Those things aren't easy to discover, and when they are discovered, they can create a lot of harm. So we know that we expect to see those really stronger emotions with those types of identity crimes. When we look at the financial impact of identity crime, so we send out a survey, and so we had 147 respondents, and 55% of those respondents reported at least one ongoing financial consequence. So 35% went into debt because of their identity theft issue. 21% depleted their savings because of their identity theft issue. So we know there's this kind of cascading effect of, kind of one incident leads to so many different harms. And that's one of the reasons why ITRC was established, right, was to help walk victims through that and to be there for them so they're not alone. For younger victims, we know that when it comes to financial harm, they have time to recover, right? They have more years to work, they have more earning potential. We know for older adults on fixed incomes, if their savings are depleted, that's ongoing debt that they may not be able to recover. It was horrible. We had a couple reach out to us a couple months ago, and they had a scammer that was just really good and was able to get them to spend their entire life savings. And they had to sell their home to recover that money, and they weren't able to then get into a comparable home. They were really worried about being homeless. It was pretty bad, and we just know that that support is really, really important. But so it's not just, oh, someone's identity was stolen, right? It impacts so many things, financially, emotionally, and in other ways as well. And it impacts not only the person who was the victim, but their network of people that support them as well. So when we think about prevention, a layered defense is the best thing because different types of compromise, different types of misuse require different defenses. So kind of a multi-layer approach is always the best way to approach that. So when we look at the different types of layered defenses, kind of these 6 really address the major threats that we are seeing with what identity thieves are doing out there. Enabling passkeys and using multi-factor authentication. I can't stress the multi-factor authentication piece enough. We had a gentleman reach out earlier this year who had a long-established Microsoft account. They had set up multi-factor authentication for most of their accounts, but didn't think about this account because they'd had it for so long. And a thief was able to get in and lock him out of his account. And when he contacted Microsoft, he went through their fraud department. The fraud department established that he was a victim of fraud. It was not him that was causing all this havoc with his account, but he didn't have access to anything. They said, well, the scammer set up multi-factor authentication. We don't have a way to get around that because they set it up with their contact information. So we just locked it down, and now you don't have access to anything that you had before. And he had had this account for quite some time, so he was understandably very upset. And we've heard that a couple of other times, not consistently, that for individuals where a thief was able to get into their account and then set up multi-factor authentication first, they just had to chalk that account up as a loss. For people with social media accounts where that's happened, a lot of times they have a lot of pictures that they've shared on social media or posts that they've made that have generated some content that they were really excited about. And they just had to walk away from that account because the thief set up multi-factor authentication. So we hammer that one pretty hard because we know that the thieves are actively getting taking over accounts and setting up that multi-factor authentication if the account holder hasn't done so. And that pause before you share is kind of that protection against scams. We know that under urgency, right, under pressure, we said that people are more likely to do things they wouldn't normally if they were in a kind of calm state. So that pausing, activity alerts are important. Securing documents, physical documents is important. I think during COVID, we had seen kind of a big uptick, right, in kind of all of those types of identity theft that happen online. We saw more companies move to using online platforms, right, to send pictures for identity verification. And then kind of as we started to come out of COVID, physical theft really ramped up. And so it was really interesting from kind of just a knowledge perspective to see that shift of everything going online. And then as soon as people were in person, the thieves followed right along and started back with the physical theft. So still definitely a way that identity thieves are getting information. We had someone who contacted us who said their car was broken into. They had left, I mean, pretty much everything in their car. They didn't take anything of value. They didn't take their headphones. They didn't take kind of other things they had that were valuable, but they did take their wallet that was there that had their license, didn't have no money in it, and they took other documents that they had that had their identity information on it. So as we talked about, we know that layered defenses are important because we know things like credit monitoring is great to catch new account fraud, but doesn't address existing account takeover. Account activity monitoring will catch existing account takeover, but not employment fraud. Credit freezes prevent new accounts from being created, but doesn't protect existing accounts. And then we know that multi-factor authentication and passkeys can address device compromise, right? But don't necessarily, depending on how it's being used, doesn't stop someone from stealing the actual device. It'll stop someone from accessing things on your phone, but it doesn't actually stop the physical device from being stolen, especially if it's unlocked and people can get into it. So, what we tell people is there's no kind of one size fits all defense. It's really layering all those pieces of defense to build a really, really strong shield. And then knowing that even if you did all of these things and were super hyper vigilant, that doesn't mean that you're completely protected. We tell everyone you can't 100% protect against identity theft, but you could do a lot of things to make it a lot harder for thieves to get your information. And then if it does happen, of course, we're happy to provide support. So when we look at identity crime and a recovery roadmap, we always encourage people to contact the ITRC. Again, I think the recovery process can be time consuming. It can be overwhelming. And so for individuals who feel really empowered to take those steps themselves and feel really comfortable in that, that's great. And we love that. But for people who are like, I just want to either, I have a plan, but I want to double check to make sure I didn't miss anything, or I don't even know the first place to start. We just encourage people to contact us at the ITRC. We have what we call our advisors. We just ask people to come in, tell us what's going on, tell us what you're worried about, and then we'll come up with a plan together. We can't take and don't take steps on behalf of individuals. We don't want to be another source for your personal information, so we don't take that personal information. What we do is we come up with a plan and then kind of walk alongside individuals to let them know what they can do, who they can contact, what steps they can take. If they get stuck during recovery or protection step, how can we get around being stuck? What else can we do? We're happy to help in kind of any of those ways. Securing your account. So we talked about all the ways you can secure your account, placing a credit freeze. Fraud alerts are great. We think credit freezes are better. So if someone doesn't need ready access to their credit, freezing that is a great way. You can always temporarily lift those freezes. Filing an FTC identity theft report. So if you are a victim of identity theft, you need some form of report that is from a law enforcement agency to prove that you're a victim of identity theft. I will tell you anecdotally that we have had companies say they will not accept an FTC identity theft report, and they want a police report. And so you have to go to the police department to get that. And then depending on where you live, that can either be a really simple process or a really complex one. We can help walk through that process. But if you are a victim of identity theft, you know that someone's in your accounts or established account in your name, get that report, dispute it, and then document everything. Who you talk to, put as much as you can in writing, whether it's email, or an actual letter. But that documentation is really important, especially as you deal, as we know, with different people within an organization, or a company when you have an identity theft issue. It happened to me when I was disputing that eBay account. I talked to a different person every time, and the first two people didn't document what I had told them in their system. And so the third person said, well, there's no notes that you called. I had my call history, thank goodness, because I did save all my documentation, but they did not have that. So we always encourage people, even if you are told that the account issuer that you're dealing with is keeping track of everything, we want to make sure that the individuals keep track as well. So that is everything that I have. This is our toll-free number. People can call or text. Our office is open Monday through Friday from 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. Pacific time. We typically get back to people within one business day, but you can call or text that phone number. We have some resources on our website, which we are revamping. So we'll hopefully have that revamp done by next year. But you can go to idtheftcenter.org. And you can also chat with someone on our website. I just want to make a quick note that the phone number is 888 400 5530. We've had people call 800 400 5530. That's unfortunately an adult line. We can't change that. And so just make sure if you are going to call us, you use the 888 number. And as soon as I stop sharing my screen, I'm happy to drop my email address in chat if someone wants to reach out to me directly. But thank you so much.
Excellent, excellent workshop. Something we need to probably just schedule every month because we all need reminders.
Absolutely outstanding. I mean, that is the best presentation we have had in quite a while, as you know, and you were just echoing me, in my head, because everything you said, everybody needs to think about this every month and refresh what their thoughts are and what's happening with them and stuff like that. It's incredible. So I've got a couple of questions here.
Sure.
And I never thought of this before. Chris would like to know what percent of GoFundMe pages are scams?
That's a great question. I don't know off the top of my head. That's a great question. I can tell you we have not heard one issue with a GoFundMe account at the ITRC, but that doesn't mean that it's not happening. That's a great question. I wish I had the answer, but I'm not sure.
Okay. Yeah, well, you're right. It's a good question. You never know. Um, Hugs at your heartstrings sometimes. Another question about data scraping. A bad guy wants to establish genetic family relationships and goes into ancestry.com and looks up various and sundry things and creates a, profile that goes along with that. Any of that going on?
Again, not that we've heard. So of the people who are aware of ITRC and come to us with their concerns, I have not heard of anything with Ancestry.com. We did get a lot of inquiries when they had, I think it was Ancestry who had a data breach. There was one of those organizations that had a data breach. We had people who were concerned about their data floating on the web, but no one that we know of where an account has been established with someone taking over and assigning their contact information with that. Genetic information.
And I was asked, is this California specific? And I answered that and said, absolutely not.
This is
It's
nationwide.
nationwide. If you're in Canada and Australia, nanny, nanny, nanny. So, Gabe, you have a turn right now. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. This was absolutely brilliant. I'll echo what has been said, and I'm looking forward to having the material and the video shared so I can do the same thing. So absolutely excellent. Two other thoughts. One is scareware, where nothing is actually wrong, but something pops up and says something is wrong. And that happened to somebody local, and he was seeing it on his laptop and on his computer, and he was terrified. But a colleague who's a consultant was able to talk him through it. And it was just a bogus website that said, you have a real problem, call this number. And all you have to do to be a victim is call that number and follow instructions. But it was just scareware. All he had to do was close that website, close that tab, and it was gone.
Yeah.
Another one is the affinity scam, where somebody finds a list of people and they will send a note to person B claiming to be from person A saying, can you do me a favor? Can you buy gift cards and scrape off the cover and send me the codes? And those used to be primitive, but AI is helping them get better. But the funny ones that I get are, my wife and I are in a local chapter of an organization. She's the president. And so every once in a while, I get a semi-well crafted note claiming to be from my wife, asking if I can call her and do her a favor or send her gift cards. So again, you have to be careful when something out of character appears to come from somebody that you actually know. Check by another way. Don't answer the email, call them, text them, use some other channel to reach them. To verify that it's real. And of course, most of it can just be discarded because it's just so implausible. Say that my wife is going to ask me to purchase gift cards and send her the codes. Another one, which is not exactly a scam, but sometimes people will mistype an email address when they register for an account. And every once in a while, I will get a note that an account has been established, and I know that I didn't do it. And the funniest one, my email address is gabe@gabegold.com. And somebody in Arizona whose email address is one letter off, his email address is gabe@gabegolf.com because somebody named Gabe runs a golf shop. And so I got an email intended for Gabe Golf. Sometimes you can figure out who that's intended for, but sometimes you can't. If I can easily figure it out, I will tell them that they've used my email address to set up their account. And somebody did that, and I was getting notes about his appointments at his eye doctor. And I think I notified the eye doctor that that isn't me. And I was hoping that they would tell the person, try again. And the last thing I'll say is a question. You didn't mention LifeLock. And my understanding is that LifeLock is a waste of money because they can't be proactive. The best they can do is after the fact notice and notify you that something happened, and all of the $1 million protection, and they'll do this and that, and what you're paying is $15 or $20 a month. Do you have an opinion on LifeLock and whether any of that stuff that Norton offers and LifeLock offers is worthwhile?
I will tell you that LifeLock does do identity restoration, but it's usually not part of their credit monitoring package. So I think with any of those companies that offer that kind of credit monitoring, right, that is reactive, it's not proactive. And they will only help you if you discover something new that happened after you established your account with them. So even if you didn't know there was something wrong and it happened before you signed up for an account, they won't help you. So it's just one of those kind of buyer beware types of things with that. So you just have to know what you're signing up for. We always tell people you can monitor your credit yourself, right? But some people don't want to do that. I liken it to washing your car. You can wash your car yourself, or you can pay someone else to do it. I think with that any credit monitoring, it's the same. But they do offer actual identity kind of. They will help you with your identity theft issue if you're a victim, but that's not typically in the packages that most people are getting when they're looking at that monthly.
And Gabe is on the East Coast. He's in the Washington, D.C. area. Barry, you're on.
Hi, everybody. I'm Barry Cowan, the president of the Deerfield Beach Computer Club since 2005. And I know a lot of my friends are here, so let me say welcome to you. And Mona, that was an excellent presentation. I've given many, and that was comprehensive and it was scary. One area I think which should be uh, covered is cyber. Cybersecurity theft is extremely dangerous. A friend of mine was told that they should go to a bank or something, draw out money, and put it in a Bitcoin machine. And a lot of these stores, vape stores and whatever, have Bitcoin machines in there physically, $35,000 or something, and put it in that Bitcoin machine. And that money goes to a wired site which is outside of the country. Once you send a wire through Zelle or Venmo or any type of information like that, it's gone. Even the FBI cannot retain it. But if you do have a cyber situation, you should notify the FBI and do a police report. So you're backed up. The FBI then has a case they can go in and investigate. But I was told that in this case that the money was not recoverable. It went somewhere in Europe, maybe Bulgaria or some other country. Money is gone, and you cannot. So that's an issue I wanted to bring up to everybody. There are other scams using blockchains. That's another one. Bitcoin, of course, is another one. And AI is becoming involved very seriously in these scams as well. People are unaware that, the voice has been copied or duplicated, as you mentioned, or faked, and they're giving into that, and they're sending money by Zelle. And Zelle is one that I use as well, but it only goes to one person, my landlord, to pay my rent, and it works very well. So be very careful of what you're doing. And also, you can use a digital wallet instead of an actual credit card. If you go into a store and you use a credit card and you swipe it, that swiped information makes you completely vulnerable to everything that was on that card. If you use a wallet, that information through Apple Pay, which I use, is protected. They can't see the actual number or anything else. So those are my suggestions.
And we have had a presentation on digital wallets. Wolf.
That's right, Judy. You're the one that did it.
Thank you. Wolf, your turn.
I also echo that it was a good presentation. I just have one quick, simple question. How is the ITRC funded?
It's a great question. Primarily through federal grants. So we have a few grants, some of which I've applied for, so I'm very proud of that. Through the Office of Victims of Crime, so the Department of Justice Office of Victims of Crime. So we have grant funding, and then we also have sponsorship packages where we work with companies that will provide us with the funds, and we'll usually do kind of some sort of like joint marketing or joint efforts around awareness. But primarily it's OVC funding.
Timothy, your turn.
Thank you very much. Excellent presentation. The industry gives a lot of these types of presentations, but I thought yours was very well focused with actionable stuff at the end. One thing I'd like to ask you to comment on, please, is recommend ways to provide a backup access for your children to use, either when your phone is stolen or just dropped down the drain, lost, etc. They won't have your phone or your computer to do passkey access. I know what I do. I bought a cheap flip phone and turned on a second phone number for those bank accounts or investment firms that allow two different phone numbers. But what recommendations would you have for your children to access when something happens to you?
That's a great question. I don't know that it's something we've addressed, so I don't have anything off the top of my head. I'd want to really be intentional about kind of the advice that I'd give. I know that I found out that my teenage son was trying to troll bad actors on social media and used his real phone number, and then ended up getting a text message and almost falling for a scam between me and his dad, who's in cybersecurity. Luckily, we were able to stop that. So his device didn't get taken over. Yeah, I think that's, I mean, I think having, kind of a second connected device is always a good idea, that you're not connected to the internet. But I'd have to put some thought around that. That's a great question.
Yeah, I was a former cybersecurity professional, so just bought a spare flip phone with a phone number, and that way it is a back door that the kids can use if my passkey enabled devices are compromised or lost, or
Yeah.
worse, when I'm in the hospital.
Yeah, nobody
and
has home phones
can't
anymore, right?
use my own devices.
Right.
So
Yeah.
they can take over and use that flip phone.
That's a great suggestion.
That
Thank you.
seems to be something that would be in a digital executor presentation.
Precisely.
Thank you. Well, I will add that to my presentation if you don't mind.
You are welcome to it.
Steve Parker, you're on.
What time frames do you normally see that thieves use when they compromise an account? Like, how long do they not do anything before they actually make use of it?
It really varies. So we've seen with data breaches, because they data breach the company who says that they were breached usually offers some kind of credit monitoring. They'll usually sit on that information for a while before they use it. Um, with scams, they're pretty quick. So if they get your account information through a scam, they tend to turn around and use that information pretty quickly. Um, so yeah, I think it really just depends on how the information was compromised. But it really varies from what we've seen and what's been reported to us.
Jack. Please unmute there.
Yeah, okay, I think I'm unmuted. Short question. Thank you for your presentation, very informative. My question is, when you had one of your slides up, I'm not sure which slide it was, but you had different items that were compromised, like stolen, for example, a Medicare card, credit card, and these things you mentioned in conjunction with a theft of that kind of information. For example, Medicare card for your medical accounts, credit card for your credit. My question is, if one of these cards is acquired, like a Medicare card, for example, can that card be a gateway to other accounts? Like, for example, to your credit account from your Medicare account, because you're linked, say, by email or maybe a social security item in common. Does that happen where one's across to another?
Mhm.
Yes, I'm hearing some. Yeah. So yes, absolutely. And to your point, right? If you're using the same email address, if you have your social security number, right? All of anything that has that similar, that same identity credential, they will absolutely, especially using AI and software, they'll use that information and see what else they can get into.
Oh, okay, thank you.
And you should never carry your Medicare card with you. That is something that's a big time no-no. An aside, we have a little newspaper up here in Santa Clarita, and one of our private church related schools published a picture of every single graduating senior, their first and their last name, where they're going to college, and what their major is.
Yikes.
And one of my tech guy is their tech guy. And I emailed him and said, don't they realize how much information they have given about these kids for ID theft? They don't need much more. And he said he would tell them. And I'm hoping that next year they don't do that. You go to a high school, your 50th high school reunion, you need to check the page where they talk about the people that were there. You'll never know how much of your personal information is there that other people don't think about. It just doesn't take much, and it then goes on and on and on, and they add information, and you're compromised like crazy. I
We've
mean,
seen a
it's
big
silly
rise.
when you have to think about things like this, but
Yeah.
I was appalled, you know, and they have their picture. I mean, what were the, why was I interested in that and none of the parents? Parents probably thought, well, this is way cool. They got recognized, but no, 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 no. Randy, you're on.
I first of all want to say great presentation. A lot of good information. One of the things that that actually Judy just alluded to that follows to where I wanted to go, and that is your data is out there on the internet in a lot of places. Um, I, I did a check to see how this would work. One of the people search engines called Fast People Search has an option to have your information removed. And so I did it, and my name's not out there. Now, there's a program called Incogni, and there may be several other programs that do this, but will remove your information from the internet as you request. You pay a fee for that, but it may be worth it if you're at all concerned. But I think that's worth doing and worth considering, and it follows right along with what Judy's saying.
And Randy, you're going to send me the name of those companies you talked about, correct? He subliminally sent me, yes. Anyway, in California, we have the DROP program, and I sent information about it to every single officer at APCUG in hopes that they would say, oh my gosh, that's absolutely fantastic. We need to start something like that. We have 585 data brokers in California, and as of August 1st, we have submitted our profiles. They look us up. If they can find us, they are no longer allowed to sell our information to anybody, give our information to anybody. If they can't find us, they ask for more information. And if they don't go along with this, the good old state of California is going to fine them a whole bunch of money. And every state needs to do this and put them out of business. And when you look at what this doesn't cover, you're absolutely amazed. But I suggest you go to the Google Drop California and take a look at it. I gave presentations to a few groups in SoCal and sent the information up, the presentation and more to all my tech groups in California. But take a look at it because it's absolutely fantastic. And I always say, I've been doing this for such a long time that all my information is on every bathroom wall out on the internet. Back in the day, we didn't know about stuff like this, which is unfortunate. Bob, please unmute.
I wasn't on that screen, so I didn't see his hand raised.
Oh, sorry.
Now he'll ask to be unmuting.
Thank you for unmuting. Lower
Okay,
left.
I'm back. Sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, a lot of bars have these scanning devices. When you go into a bar and they ask you for ID, they don't just look at your birthday to see if you're of legal age. They put it through a scanner. And I looked into these scanners. These scanners can extract all of the information on the driver's license, your name, your address, your driver's license number, your image, and even your signature. And I think a lot of these bars are using this to sell the information. In other words, they're fooling us into thinking that they're just checking to see if we're old enough to drink, when in fact, they're taking our information.
I'm speechless, something that I wouldn't think about, but oh my gosh, of course, why not?
Well, if you ever go into a bar and they ask you for ID and you're 75 years old, like I am, don't give it to them.
I was thinking the same thing. Uh, Mona Andy says, can Mona address what direction providers are moving? Hold on. It seems pretty cloudy with half-hearted suggestions, which may be skipped to set up MFA, how to report breaches, etc.
It depends on the industry. So I know with the banking industry, there's a lot of conversation right now about scams and who's responsible for the money. Right. So if you are a victim of a scam, right, and you didn't know, and you find out that you were, and the money's gone, is that the bank's responsibility or is that the individual's responsibility? Should you get your money back? So there's a lot of conversations around that. Um, yeah, it really just depends on the industry. I know that financial institutions in general tend to have a better understanding and better fraud detection, I guess, and they have better cues. It's one of the things. Our trends and identity report was just released actually yesterday, and that was one of the things that we had noticed as well, is that these systems aren't set up to support victims of identity theft, and they're not taking into account all the ways information's out there and being misused, and so then people are having to jump through all these extra hoops. I'm seeing some encouraging movement, but again, I think you're right. I think where we're going backwards is the use of AI and AI for customer service. So people can't even get through now to talk to someone. And if you have a new account established in your name and you're going to a company going, hey, that's not me, you can't get through because they don't have any information on you, right? Because you're not an account holder. So that's made it even harder because now they're hitting this AI wall and can't get through to anyone. So I think there's a lot of, like you said, a lot of talk happening right now. We're hoping to see kind of the needle move in a positive direction. I think as at least the individuals in this space that are talking about identity protection and just technology and safe use for individuals, that's being heard, but it really just depends on the industry, and I'm hoping that with all the conversations something actually comes out of it, but that's one of the things that we're watching.
John Pierce has an excellent suggestion. Don't ever carry your debit card with you because it has all the information to need to use it for online purchases. So, something that you may or may not have thought of. Barry, you're on again.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention a couple of things. Scammers are now taking in on the fact that we're all paying a lot for gas, and what a better place to grab somebody's credit card is at a gas station.
I was just going to say that. Yep.
Do not do that. Be very, very careful. Also, in the banks, they're doing it off of ATM called skimmers. It's something that's inside. When I go to the bank, I actually put my finger in there to see if there's, if it rattles or anything else, there's something wrong with and if a scammer wants to take something from you, that's an easy way to do it also. Okay, Mona, I'm done. Great job today.
Every time you go to the gas station, you need to pull on where you are going to insert your credit card because they put stuff over it. And in California, you need to have a strip of tape that says, hi there, the government's been by and we've checked this out and it's all okay. Oftentimes it's suggested that you only get gas close to where the people that are working in the gas station can see what's going on, that they don't necessarily do those pumps. And you should honestly do that every place that you are going to, put your debit card in. Like Barry said, have an Apple account, a Google account, something like that, and pay that way because it's either tap your card. But it's interesting, how they're really out to get us every single place they possibly can. And, and it sucks big time. Bob G, you're on.
My friend.
One thing I wanted to point out is that in identity theft, by the way, Mona, thank you for a good presentation. Identity theft, if you're a victim and someone's now emptied your bank account, unfortunately, to get the money back requires a civil suit. It's not considered a crime. You're not automatically innocent till you prove yourself, or you have to prove yourself innocent. It's not where you are innocent till proven guilty. You're guilty till you prove that, hey, it was a crook that did it, not me. And that's not always easy to do. Something that needs to change in the law when we're talking about identity theft. This should be considered a crime, not a civil judgment.
The attorney's office down in San Diego many years ago was the first one that got money back for folks who were scammed by the grandparents scam. And it wasn't just local people in that area. They gathered up other people across the US who had fallen prey to the same scam. And that was absolutely fantastic that they took the time to do that and got it through, because that often doesn't happen, because so many of the organizations that you report to can't do lawsuits for you. It has to go to an AUSA, the FBI, somebody local. And in this case, it was the Department of Justice for San Diego.
Yeah, and if this was to be considered an actual crime rather than a civil infraction, you wouldn't have the problem, because your bank would be making sure that identity theft, a crook shouldn't be able to impersonate you. The onus of proof shouldn't be on the person who isn't guilty. It should be on the person who committed the crime, and the bank should be held responsible for allowing it to happen. But that's not the case as the law reads right now. So that needs to be something. Maybe you ought to contact your senator and your congressman and say, hey, Mac, time to change this thing. Why should the little guy have to go through all the hassles when the big guys with all of the money and all of the legal representation aren't doing their job?
Bob, you didn't hear me say this, but APCUG can't do stuff like this. But it would be nice if somebody would put a little, letter together, so we could all do that, because that is an absolutely fantastic idea. I am already thinking of definitely doing that for my people here in California. And we're boots on the ground. I will bring it up at our next LA FBI Senior Scams Working Group meeting and see what they have to say about it. But I think that's fantastic. And the people in my area are really doing a lot of good stuff, even just my local house and people for the state. Way cool. Gabe.
Really quickly, sorry, Judy.
Go.
Not being an attorney, the identity theft is actually a crime. It is defined as a crime, but the way it's written is the onus is still on the individual to prove
That's correct.
that they were right. So that's the part, and that's one of the things that we also are very vocal about, because you're right, the onus is absolutely on the individual, even though it is a crime, to then prove that they are the victim, which you don't see in any other crime type. So I agree.
Hi, thanks. A comment on the frequent advice to not carry your Medicare card. I have two insurances. I have Medicare and I have Blue Cross Blue Shield. And every time I go to the doctor, Even if it's a doctor I've been seeing for 10 years, they want to see my insurance cards. And so it's just not practical, I think, not to have those cards with you, because then you have to remember, oh, I have a doctor's appointment today. I have to find the cards. I have to put them in my wallet, go to the doctor, then come back and remember to take the cards out of the wallet. So I think that advice is well intentioned, but I just don't think in the real world it's practical. The other comment I wanted to make is on payments. At the gas station I go, I wave my Apple Watch at the gas pump, and it says, "Hi, how much gas would you like? What kind of gas would you like?" And so between the fact that there's no physical contact, so there's no card to skim, and the fact that I'm using Apple Pay in my Apple Wallet, I think that's at least two layers of protection. So there are technologies that can help avoid things like somebody put a skimmer on the gas pump.
Kaiser doesn't ask for my card. I had the AARP insurance, and they didn't ever ask for my card either. So it depends on what other health plan that you have, and you might want to suggest the information is in their database.
It's not the health plan, it's the doctors. And
Oh, well,
I will say, you know me, I recognize the person sitting at the desk, and it doesn't matter to them. They are told to collect the card and make a copy of it. And so, you want to see the doctor, you turn over your card momentarily. There's really no way to avoid it.
I had to have physical therapy, and I heard the hassling of the lady in the next line, and she had to give the social security number, blah, blah, blah. I got up there and wouldn't do it. What in the world do you need my social security number for? I'm here for 6 visits, that's it. And they called the office manager, and the gal thought, and she said, we really don't need your social security number. So all you have to do is push back. All
Oh,
the
sure. I never, I
say
never,
no.
I never give the social security number.
No, but
But
I would do the same thing with my Medicare card too, Gabe.
you can't. You just can't do that when it's the
Really?
doctor's office procedure to say we have to see the card.
Well, it
Yeah,
was
I
that
think
doctor's office to see the social security number.
Yeah, I think we look at protection in terms of kind of good, better, best, right? So if you know you're going to the doctor's office, then you're probably going to have your card with you, right? Because they're going to need that, but maybe don't carry it if you're not going to the doctor's office. I know someone's chatting saying, well, I want to make sure if something were to happen to me, I had my card on me. So I think it's one of those you just have to weigh the risk, right, and the benefit, and if you feel like it's better for you to carry the card so that you have it in case of an emergency, and you're willing to take the risk that if for some reason your wallet was stolen that has that card, you'll deal with it then. That's up, right? That's a personal decision. I feel like it's what your risk profile is. So we
Mhm.
always lead with, I think here's the most secure thing to do, right? If you really want to make sure nothing's going to happen, but that's not always real life either. And so I think you just have to kind of look at that benefit, right? And what's the risk and what's the benefit?
Randy, you're on.
Two things. One, it's illegal to use the Social Security number for anything other than work. That is what it's designed for. And when people ask you for it for anything else, including insurance, you're not required. And if they say we can't give you insurance, well, then you move on. The second thing is when you go to the gas station and you want to get your gas, use a credit card. If for some reason it did get misused, you can get your money back. On a debit card, you cannot.
Cool. Bill James, you're on.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think Gabe kind of mentioned it, but I've been using tap to pay. That's using my credit card rather than actually physically putting the card into the machine.
Mhm.
And that seems to work very well. And also, I've using a digital wallet. I think Judy mentioned that I have credit cards in my phone, so I can use it that way. About the Medicare here in Oklahoma, the doctor I go to requires me every time to show my Medicare card and my military ID because I have TRICARE. So I have to show both of those. And so I'm always carrying my military ID and my Medicare card. So I don't know how to really get around that. And I was really fearful when I went overseas on a vacation. I carried my Medicare card and my um, military ID as well. And there's always, you have to really be careful with your personal belongings when you're traveling and have it in a secure pack or something where it's not, it won't be snatched. But I really enjoyed your presentation and thank you so much for presenting it. But do you have any comments on the tap to pay?
I agree. I mean, I use Tap to Pay myself. Right. I still use a national credit card, but I also can use Apple Pay. So it just depends, I think, on where I'm at in the moment. I do know that with credit cards, at least the detection software and the fraud protection is there. So at least for me, I tend to use a credit card at a gas station pump. For that reason, I know there are skimmers, but also when I have had my card information skimmed and have notified them, it's been a non-issue, at least my personal experience, and from other people we've talked to who've had that issue, they've been able to get that resolved fairly quickly. Um, but I think, anything that you do that feels the most secure, I think is going to be what works for you, right? So if you don't feel comfortable, some people, because for people we know whose devices have been hacked or they've experienced identity theft and a lot of it was online, they don't trust it, right? So they want to have everything physical. So I'm not going to tell them to not carry their cards with them if that's what makes them feel safe. So kind of back to that kind of good, better, best. I think the digital payments are great. I think, it's definitely secure, but I think it's up to everyone's risk tolerance also.
Bill, have you
Yes, ma'am.
tried putting them in your phone? You do all your boarding stuff and all that good kind of stuff, and I don't know. And I know you have your car insurance in your phone. If you get stopped by the cops for some reason, you can flash that. Why don't you
Yeah,
try that just for grins and see what happens?
I think they would probably take it. They just want to see. It's mostly for to see if it has a non-expired date.
Got it. But why don't you try that and let me know, okay?
All right, I'll do
And
that.
you know I'll hound you to death.
Driver's licenses are moving to mobile as well. So there's a
Oh,
couple states that
yeah.
have already adopted mobile driver's licenses, and there's more and more states that are adopting that as
Oh,
well.
absolutely. John Metcalf and then Timothy and Donna and Gabe, and then we're moving on to Jolen's presentation. And if you have other questions, you can put them in the chat box and I will send them to Mona. And I know she will graciously answer them.
Happy to answer.
John, you're on.
Yeah, hi. I'm doing this on my phone because I'm in the chemotherapy chair today. Anyway,
I knew that.
yeah, I know you knew that. I told you. Anyway, last week we were a victim of a false virus. I don't know if you've heard of that. All of a sudden, my wife kept getting these things. Oh, you have this virus. All your thing is locked. Click here to clean it out. Well, I didn't let her do that. But anyway, long and the short was the way that was cured, had to open Edge and clean the entire history. Somehow it had gotten attached to Edge. And it was just driving her crazy. Couldn't get rid of them fast enough. They kept coming back. So, and the other one about Venmo, I read an article, a guy paid a contractor $30,000 or so in Venmo, and he walked away. Well, Venmo says, I'm not responsible. And the banks behind Venmo say, we're not responsible, we're just the pipeline. So don't talk to us.
You have to be very careful using Zelle. They have been sued many, 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 many times.
Well, I don't use
Venmo was good. That's unfortunate.
I will tell you, I used Zelle. recently to pay a contractor, a plumbing contractor, because we had a plumbing issue, and my bank actually wouldn't let it go through, and I had to make it only a certain amount. I'm only allowed a certain amount per day. It's a very small amount per day, and then every single day because I had to split the payment, I had to call the bank. I told them, I told the people I talked to, like, I am grateful that you guys are so right, are being so careful. But yeah, it was a lot, but they were luckily the bank itself was really good about making sure that I was sure that I wanted to send that payment.
And I hope you all have contacted your financial institutions and have a limit set with them, that if something comes through that is over the limit, they get in touch with you. My Discover card, I got an email and it said, we just got a charge on, but that's not the bank, but it's a Discover card. You usually don't send this much money to that entity. And it was a Weebly charge, $288 for a website that died 2 years ago. And I told them about it and they alerted me to it. And I immediately got in touch with PayPal. And within 30 minutes, I had it, removed. So please, your cards, your banks, put a limit and they get in touch with you. It happened with my daughter when she got zapped at a gas station 2 different times. And immediately our credit union got in touch and said, we know that you're, where you are, but your card was just used on the East Coast. So please get those limits. And so you get that information. Timothy. Unmute, please.
Unmute, yes. Thank you for all the great suggestions. I have one to add. The doctors asking for your Medicare ID is absolutely essential that they at least see it and verify that, yes, that is the same one that we have on file for you. They really shouldn't be scanning it every single time, but they ought to at least compare the two numbers every time, because my wife's Medicare number has been stolen and used to get medical care twice. So she's on her third Medicare number. Second, if you're not comfortable leaving your Medicare card at home, this is one of at least two companies, Medic Alert, that will use a QR code that the emergency medical technicians and the emergency room can scan and get the information they need in order to treat you. In theory, hackers should not be able to scan this and get your information, but it's a good backup for when you don't want to carry your Medicare card with you. Thank you.
Thanks. Donna. Unmute, please.
I'm sorry, real quick. Two things. Number one, I got to notice that Apple is letting you put your passport in your wallet. And number two, with our auto insurance, they're suggesting that you make a copy of your DMV registration that you have to carry in your car, and that you Xerox it with your address blocked out. So if thieves get in your car, they don't know your home address. So a simple thing to do, but you just make a copy and put it in your car that way. That's all. Very quick.
I'm sorry. Absolutely outstanding. Thank you so much. Gabe, you're it.
Hi, thank you. A comment on credentials in electronic wallets. I have as much in my wallet, in my electronic wallet, as I can put in there. And I find that I occasionally have to update credentials. Somebody mentioned make sure you have the current expiration date. So for things like AAA and my auto registration and AARP, the credentials in the wallet have the expiration date. And so I may have updated the account. I may have paid my dues for another 2 years or 5 years, but unless I think delete the credential and then reinstall it in the wallet won't show the current expiration. So some of those things have to be updated when you pay another fee to carry the account further.
Another excellent suggestion. Thank you so much to everybody for sharing. It's great. Mona, this was absolutely too much fun, is all I can say. And I, for one, who keeps up with this stuff, I learned so much. It's incredible.
Wow.
And we'd love to have you back again with a different topic. You just let me know. And over to John.
I'd like to thank Mona as well. It's another excellent presentation that I know will be used a lot by our member groups when they have access to it over our club's YouTube channel. So thank you all for coming and attending. Please be safe, use what you've learned, share what you've learned.